the CEO of the Dallas Express, Chris Putnam. How you doing, man? Welcome.
Great, Mark. Thanks so much for having me back. And, nobody understands how hard it is to be incumbents more than I do. If you'll recall, 2020.
Yes. Oh, let's tell. Go. You tell the story. You tell the story, and then I'll add. Go ahead. Go. It's 2020.
I'll keep it brief. I ended up actually being recruited into what turned out to be the highest profile, most expensive Republican primary race of that particular cycle. Supported in Washington, supported locally in Fort Worth, and just happened to be the cycle where the president was impeached right in the middle of the cycle, and Trump ended up endorsing every incumbent. Needed 7 points, and that cost us probably 10 to 12. But I was running against a 30-year incumbent in that case. So what you said is absolutely true.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's where I got to know Chris, and Chris is a conservative, and he's great. He's well spoken. He's got everything you could ever want. But there were two things that were problematic. One of them, it was Kay Granger, and there was not a broad enough desire to fire Kay Granger. And the other thing was it was Texas 12. Which did you come away? Do you today, in fact, believe that Texas 12th Congressional District is just not quite as conservative as you are?
No, not at all. In fact, it's still, I believe, a plus 17 district. And in that cycle, that was prior to redistricting. It included all of Parker County, only the western part of Fort Worth, as well as southern Wise County. Incredibly conservative. It's changed a little bit. Since they redistricted, it's probably a plus 14, 15 now, but it's still very conservative.
Yeah, okay. So what do we think of Brother Goldman? Craig Goldman's in there now. I mean, he ain't Louis Gohmert either.
Yeah, fair enough. In the case of Craig, it just happened to be one of those cycles. He was he had name ID. There was not a strong primary contender in that race, and he's very much a favorite of the Fort Worth establishment, as you mentioned. And, really there wasn't a well-funded, credible conservative candidate in that race.
Chris Putnam is here, and he is the CEO of the Dallas Express. We're going to talk about what the Dallas Express is. If you don't know, you should. But first, you and Debbie, do you know Debbie? It's not the first time you'll be meeting her that night, I assume. You familiar with Debbie Georgianos?
Yeah, of course.
She's just the best.
We've been speaking here frequently. Yeah.
She is just the best. She came to me at a luncheon in Dallas just years ago and said, I think I want to do a talk show. I said, it's kind of funny. I think I blurted out, good luck with that, because everybody says that to me. It's just a terrible time to try to start to do that. I said, let me tell you something, Debbie. You are smart. You're awesome. I would listen to you all day long. You know what you need to do? You need to gather some money, buy some time, because that'll instantly get a door to open for you, and come to a radio station and say, listen, I want to buy 3 hours. And they'll say, thank you very much. Get in, do that, and be good. And now she's got that whole, it started out as Ladies Can We Talk? Now it's America Can We Talk? I am so proud of the empire that you guys have both built conservative media empires of your own. You and she will co-moderate. This is all from my friend Benji Gershon at American Jewish Conservatives. They're the sponsor of this, the Battle for Texas Agriculture Commissioner. Before we talk about the nuts and bolts of moderating that, because there's an art and a science to moderating things.
Yeah.
How do you view that debate? Just tell me where your head is going as that date approaches.
Well, in this case, it may be more refereeing than moderating.
Seriously.
No, it's going to be exciting. I just did one for Congressional District 32, the Republican primary. There we had 6 candidates. It was incredibly civil. Everybody was respectful. You just got to set expectations up front in terms of how things are going to go and stick to it, right? And if people start to get out of line, check them a little bit in a polite way, and encourage them to move on and not make it about personalities, make it about the issues.
So as you prep for that, do you ask sort of generalized, of course, there are generalized ag commissioner type questions that you would ask about various things that you would, no matter who's running. To what extent do you want to ask really specific things about the way this particular race has gone? And so, I mean, how long have you known Sid? How long have you been familiar with Sid? It's a head scratcher. I don't get it. He said, I don't know if Abbott's been on the farm and Patrick's from New England. It's like, what? I mean, I don't know how much. I mean, it's funny because bringing that up would seem to play directly into what Nate wants to talk about. And you want to be totally fair about this. So how do you kind of balance out some some campaign specific questions for both of these guys.
Yeah, I do think it's fair to ask. I mean, starting with general questions is, a good way to start before we get into more issues based. The question on everybody's mind, of course, for Sid is, what'd you do to the governor? And I think the right way to, approach that kind of question is there's been a lot of conversation about the government endorsing your opponent. Help us understand what you believe that's all about, and turn them loose. We're not going to be asking gotcha questions of either candidate. You give them an opportunity to respond in their own words to difficult or what could be perceived as difficult questions like that. And it's like you said earlier at the lead. Look, Sid's a tough beat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he wins by double digits pretty much every election, and he actually does better in primary elections than he does in general elections. And so, we always forget, I know you don't, but the political echo chamber noise doesn't always translate to general elections. And generally, undecideds in particular, as well as seniors, break towards incumbents. I think the number's about 80%. And seniors make up just a huge part of the electorate, as you know.
Yeah. Indeed so. All right, AmericanJewishConservatives.com, they're sponsoring it, and go to events, and the top one there is the Texas Agriculture Commission debate, co-moderated by our guest right now, Chris Putnam. For those who do not know what Dallas Express is, tell them.
Yeah, so the Dallas Express is effectively the center-right alternative to the Dallas Morning News and Fort Worth Star-Telegram. We're right-leaning, but we appeal to independents, moderate Democrats, even some liberals. Some of the biggest stories we've had have actually been about other Republicans. You mentioned Kate Granger earlier. We broke the story a year and a half ago or so about her basically being AWOL from Congress for the last 7 months of her tenure. We found her in an independent living facility. And so, unlike a lot of what I call the lying legacy media, we're transparent about that. And there was just an incredible appetite for it here in DFW. I think if you looked at a map of the entire DFW metroplex, inclusive of the suburbs, you'd see that 55, 60% of potential readers, lean right. And it's a business thing at the end of the day. I mean, there was the Dallas Morning News is now, of course, owned by a New York City company, Hearst Media. Star-Telegram, owned by a New Jersey hedge fund. They disenfranchised a lot of their potential readers and continue to. And there's a reason that, their subscriptions, their revenue is way down. The Dallas Morning News at the time they were sold lost $80 million, $33 million in the last public quarter. And the Star-Telegram Fort Worth report last year, a great story on them when they went down to 3-day-a-week printing. They're down to 27,000 total subscribers, and that's from a peak of 300,000 plus in the 90s. We are 500,000 subscribers plus. We email 250,000 e-newsletters a day, over 1 million social followers. I think we had something on the order of 40 million social impressions just last month. And so we've just grown at a really rapid rate, and that's because there's just a huge appetite for something different.
Website is DallasExpress.com, DallasExpress.com. Their CEO, Chris Putnam, is here. All right, anytime I run across somebody who follows politics and just sort of seems to have their finger on the pulse of things like this, how do you see Cornyn versus Paxton versus Hunt in terms of just go? How is that? How do you think that's going to play out? Who's doing things that are smart? Anybody doing things that are not smart? Any head scratchers? What's your take on that whole thing?
Well, in the case of Ken, I think he easily makes the runoff. That's almost a certain. I have not heard anybody dispute that that's likely, and the polls all reflect that. John's running an interesting race. He's kind of running a bit of a Biden basement campaign. We've tried to draw him out for interviews, as have many others. Candidate forums, he declined one of ours that both Hunt and Paxton had agreed to. And I think the most interesting thing is look at his ads. He's running ads against Wesley Hunt.
Yep.
Which means he believes he's competing for second, which is just unbelievable. I strongly believe that, it'll be Ken and John in the runoff.
Yeah. And
the one thing about Texas, and you know this, Mark, is conservatives win runoffs and challengers win runoffs. And so as we sit here today, you can understand a lot of things can change between now and a May runoff. it's looking pretty good for Paxton.
That is very interesting. I think there's a lot of logic to that. I think there is
Ted Cruz.
Indeed so, in the Dewhurst race. I think that as Wesley decided to get in and turn this into an almost certain runoff situation, I think the reason that Cornyn decided to go after Wesley, try to squash him like a bug, was to kind of clear the decks for the mano a mano. Cornyn wants Paxton head to head. The points you bring up sort of take us to be careful what you wish for, because I have no idea. I mean, yes, indeed, the more conservative, the insurgent, the challenger tends to do well in a runoff. True. Nobody's come close to putting a glove on Cornyn in 22. The closest anybody's come to him is 40 points. That was Steve Stockman in a primary. So
he's outraised Paxton by a considerable amount of money, and that will matter.
It'll matter a lot
in a runoff.
And he's going to, and he'll do two things in the runoff. He'll continue portraying himself as Trump's best buddy, whether people buy that or not, and he is going to launch what is probably one of the bitterest, ugliest personal campaigns against Ken that we've seen run against anybody.
I think we've already started to see it.
Yep. No. It's going
to make for a lot of fun on Twitter.
And will that resonate? I don't know. All right, last couple of minutes. You did a Texas 32. I'd like to know your thoughts on this. You said there were 6 candidates on hand, right?
Yes, sir.
So like a checklist. Was one of them Paul Bondar?
Yes.
Was one of them
was
one of them Ryan Binkley?
Yes.
Was one of them Jace Yarborough?
Yes.
We
had them all.
Was one of them Darrell Day?
We had them all. Yeah, we had all the front runners.
Well, okay, there he was going to say. Okay, you're being generous. One of those 4 is going to win this thing. That's a guaranteed runoff as well. Bondar's ads are great. I've spoken to him, and he's great. Binkley has a ton of money. His ads are great. Did Yarborough just get he has an Abbott endorsement. Did Yarborough just get a Trump endorsement?
He got the Trump endorsement,
dude.
And like me, back at 20, he's working with Club for Growth.
Yeah, and Darrell Day is just a good dude. Has done it before, and I just like him. And so I don't know. Just how did that event go that you guys did? Did you come away thinking not you're going to declare a winner, but how did that strike you?
Those 4 guys in particular, clearly have a unique value proposition to the voters. And they're all very strong in their own way. You mentioned Darrell, and Darrell's been in the trenches for a long time.
Yep.
He fought in that district when it was not a red district.
Yep.
Jace, of course, is like straight out of Central Casting. Yeah. And Ryan's strong as well. And so is Paul. Paul's an earnest, nice, affable guy with a great bio, great story. At the end of the day, I don't want to speculate. There'll be 2 of those 4 guys, as you mentioned. I think maybe I will speculate. I think the most likely is that you see Jace and Ryan Binkley, but don't be surprised if Paul sneaks in there. He's well funded.
Wouldn't surprise me in the least. So keep track of all of these surprises, all these developments in the pages of the Dallas Express, DallasExpress.com. And again, AmericanJewishConservatives.com to be there where this gentleman, Chris Putnam and Debbie Georgianos will moderate the Texas Ag Commissioner debate with Sid Miller and Nate Sheets. And that is coming up on Sunday at the Angelica. Well, this was great. I think we ought to do this again sometime soon because it's always great. You guys do great work at the Dallas Express. So let's chat again soon.
Would love that, Mark. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. Chris Putnam, Dallas Express.